camera's a little off real quick. Nope, wrong direction.
So why there's so much of it going around, and then also how you can kind of do a quick, easy check and see, is this maybe part of what you are experiencing? So if that sounds exciting to you, make sure you stay tuned, listen through the whole thing. I'm going to explain, again, the key reason why a lot of people, students and teachers in particular, are dealing with a lot of this right now, on top of everybody else. So if you would, real quick, don't forget to give me a like on the video and let me know in the comments down below whether or not you're watching the video live or whether you're watching the video on replay after the fact. All right, any questions you have on this, let me know. And also, if somebody could let me know real quick whether or not my audio is working, that would be a big help. All right, so here's what's going on. So if you're dealing with burnout, for a lot of people, now there are some exceptions to this, there's a couple different versions. The most common version that I am seeing right now with people that I'm talking to is dopamine burnout, all right? So what that means is you have reduced drive, lower desire, you don't feel as satisfied with things, you feel maybe like you can't win or that you don't care to win. Depends on, there's a few different versions of it that you can deal with. But this idea that like you just don't want to do anything. You don't want to go work out. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to engage. And sometimes actually for a lot of people, again, I'm not dealing with the medical side, but a lot of the depression that people end up getting, for many people, it's actually dopamine related according to the research rather than serotonin related. So that's kind of what people experience. There's just kind of like this lack of drive. Like there's no fuel in the tank. You can't light the fire. And again, that you kind of just feel stuck, kind of like I do with my words right now. And so there are three things that ultimately can cause or can contribute to this, in basically the pathway. So we're looking at not delegating enough projects, could well be. Again, so there's a number of things that can play into. Sorry, I'm looking at comments as well as they're coming through. So ultimately, from a neurological perspective, there are three things. So what we end up with is we have dopamine, and either we don't have enough or our body is not listening to it. So we're either not making enough, first of all, we're not bringing in the raw materials in order to actually make dopamine. And that can be a big problem because some of the raw materials for making dopamine are also needed for making thyroid hormone, which means you're also going to end up with a reduction in metabolism at the same time. Okay, so this is linked to a lot of people's weight loss as well. So, sorry. So bringing in enough of the raw materials, in particular, the one to look at is called tyrosine. It's an amino acid. It's in every form of protein out there pretty much, but you can also just get it in supplement form. I'm going to mention that a little bit more later on. So are you bringing in enough of the raw materials to make the neurotransmitter dopamine in sufficient quantities? There's two things with dopamine. There is the base level dopamine, like what your body normally has. And if that level is low, your mood is going to be low. If that level is high, usually your energy and your mood is higher. And then there are also the spikes that happen as a result of different things that you're doing and different things that are going on. Essentially, that's your reward mechanism. And one of the major drivers in a lot of people's addictions is that reward spike happens and it gets you addicted to the thing, but then you need more stimulation, a bigger reward, and that's part of why they keep going back for more. But it ends up never really satisfying, okay? That's a good example of dopamine burnout is if you go back for more coffee and the coffee doesn't really help you to the same degree, like you need 3 cups of coffee where 1 cup of coffee used to do the trick. Who felt that way whenever you were in high school or college? A cup of coffee, you're good to go. You wait, you can stay up all night, and then the next day you're just fine. Usually those are people with more dopamine floating around in their system. They're doing better with regards to that. And then as we get older, we start having trouble making enough. And again, that's where we're dealing with some of the burnout and things like that again. Let me get my notes back on because it turned off on me because I talked for too long. Okay, so first off, do you have enough raw materials to make the dopamine coming in? Secondly, is there a problem with conversion from the raw material to the actual dopamine? That's a common thing as well. If you're low in vitamins and minerals, again, there are a number of things that can affect that as well. And then the third is, are you oversensitized, or rather is your body less receptive to the dopamine? And that is typically the result of some sort of overstimulation. Again, you now need 3 cups of coffee where 1 cup of coffee used to do the trick. So those are the 3 things. Why are we dealing with so much of this right now? Okay, one of the best studies that I remember reading about with regards to dopamine and how its effects are on the brain and certain types of stress. They take 2 rats, they take an older, usually more aggressive rat, and then they put a smaller, younger rat in the same cage with them. So essentially you've got one that's always going to win and then one that's always going to lose. And then they look at the effect of the rat that is always going to lose. And they find that it damages its dopamine reception system. The entire system basically gets damaged because the rat feels like it can never win. Who maybe feels like that right now? If you look at what's going on in the world, you know, okay, we want to go back to normal. Nope, not yet. We want to go back to normal. Nope, not yet. And then whenever you finally do get out there and you're dealing with all of these things, I feel like honestly a lot of students and teachers are dealing with that right now because if you got, for example, one client of mine, she teaches 3rd grade, but she's functionally teaching 1st graders who are constantly trying to catch up, but they don't understand because they lost 1.5 years worth of education. Okay? They feel defeated, like they can never catch up, they can never win. That will mess with your brain. The second reason is some sort of overstimulation, overexposure to something that's constantly stimulating dopamine so that your body is burning through raw materials and then not wanting to listen to the signal anymore because it's actually not getting the reward that it really wants. Blue light is especially something that is causing that right now because how many people spent the last 1.5 years staring at a screen for more time than they ever used to in the past? Excessive amounts of blue light from phones, TVs, computers, things like that has actually been shown to overstimulate dopamine and in children can permanently damage their brain, permanently put them into a more numb state because their body is burned through and been overstimulated by so much dopamine. Okay, so that's part of what I think is going on with a lot of people today. Why you're feeling burned out, the whole idea of Zoom fatigue, it's actually real. Okay, so if you feel like this might be you and you feel like, okay, maybe this is something that I'm dealing with. What I recommend, this is actually something I did for myself this last week just to see what would happen, is get yourself some L-tyrosine. I'll put a link in the description later on, but L-tyrosine, it's an amino acid, it's super cheap, and it basically is just the raw materials that your body needs in order to make dopamine as well as adrenaline and thyroid hormones. So T3, T4 thyroid hormones, the T is tyrosine. And what I did was I took 3 grams, 3 whole grams, that's a pretty decent quantity, it's a relatively high quantity, and I just put it in my morning drink, and I sipped on it for an hour. And I noticed after an hour, I'm like, ooh, my energy is better than it normally is, my focus, my mood was improved, and I actually felt warm, which is an indication that your thyroid is elevating. And okay, that tells me, for whatever reason, I was not getting enough tyrosine to fuel the dopamine that my body's trying to create and use on a daily basis. And so that's something that, okay, I've been working on that this last week. My energy is a lot better. I've known this stuff for a while, but sometimes you have to go back to things and kind of go, oh, well, this either applies to me again or this applies to me now, whereas it may not have been in the past, because we're always different, we're always learning. And again, everybody's in this boat together. So hope this is helpful. Get a little bit of tyrosine, you get them in capsules. That's what I'd recommend, and just try that, see how you feel, see if that has an effect. If you feel like this is you and you'd like some help sorting through some of this, especially with its effects on weight loss and your ability to be motivated and want to actually improve yourself, give me a message or comment down below. We'll chat. We'll see if we can figure something out, if I can be of help to you, if I can answer your questions. That's all I've got for